Call to order the meeting of the Greenwood Common Council on Monday, September the 16th. If you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing. We'll be led in prayer this evening by Ford Glover, pastor of Suburban Baptist Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, Lord, we do love you this evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come to the Greenwood City Council meeting and pray for these fine folks that have taken of their time and given their efforts to make Greenwood what it is. Special place in my heart, this city of Greenwood, ever since I was a little boy, and being able to stomp around in this area, and it truly has become a city of pride and progress, due in large part to these people making decisions for the progress of this city. So I simply ask that you put your hand of blessing on the proceedings this evening. I ask too that you put your hand of protection on these folks and their families. And we'll give you the praise, honor, and glory for that. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Pastor Glover. Roll call.
Armstrong.
Here.
Bates.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Steins.
Here.
Foster.
Here.
Gibson. Here. Hill.
Here.
Hopper.
Here.
And Lexi.
Here. We have a quorum. All of you should have received copies of the minutes for our last regular meeting of September the 4th. Do I have a motion? So moved. Motion by Mr. Bates, second. Second. Second by Mr. Dine. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, roll call on the minutes.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Stein.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
And Lexi.
Abstain. Minutes are passed. We'll go to 8-0 with one abstention. Reports, Corporation Council.
Should have received the items on my monthly report and the litigation report on the SharePoint. And if you have questions about any of the items appearing in those reports, please contact me.
All right, Controller, at the last council meeting, I mentioned I'd asked the Controller and Mr. Stone to talk to us a little bit about the TIF districts, and so this is their time.
Good evening. Tonight I'm here on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission and City Controller, and just wanted to give a quick update. This is a presentation we gave to the Redevelopment Commission at their last regularly scheduled meeting, and we had a request to present the same findings to the Common Council. So what I'm referring to is the handout that you all have paper copy for, and I apologize, I don't want to have one for the quote in the audience, but I'll do my best to say it for the record. So what you're looking at is each year the Johnson County Auditor's Office certifies the Redevelopment Commission's net taxable values. They refer to them as captured assessed values. And if you're familiar with the way the Redevelopment Commission taxes real property, it's looking at the total tax within the district. It subtracts the base that was there at the beginning, and that delta, if you will, is what they refer to as captured assessed value. So things such as abatement roll-offs, new development, new construction, all of those type of things, as well as just overall the increase in commercial industrial property values, all increase those over time. About 30 days or so, we got the Pay 2020 values, and they're broken out by TIF. In each TIF district, just for the audience, those are special taxing districts that are spread out across the city for various different developmental zones. The city has 7 of these currently, with 3 relatively new ones: Horseville Road, the Central Expansion TIF, as well as the Southwest area within the city. When you look at all those districts combined, Pay 2020 combined taxable assessed value is $468,900 And the reason we wanted to come do a quick little presentation on that is for a couple reasons. One, the city itself, through its property tax, also received their paid 2020 values as well. And for the same period, it came in around 2 to 3%. So when you compare the redevelopment commission's year-over-year growth versus the city's base growth, it's well over a 2 to 3x multiple, which is what for a long time we've used as a performance measure, if you will, relative to if the TIF is growing fast enough to defer the benefit. Okay, so that would be the first takeaway. The second is, and you'll see it later in your agenda, some of the two oldest TIF districts are referred to as the East Side allocation and the Fry Road US 31 allocations. Those two areas have 322 million and 55.4 million respectively, with only about 10 years or so left in their taxable life. So in order to maximize the benefit to that, you're able to go through and bond against those incremental values. Okay, and you'll see that later in your agenda this evening. And then as far as the new allocation areas, a couple. One that really stands out is Central. If you look at Central, really five or 6 years ago, it didn't exist, and now for pay 2020, it has almost $66 million captured, and it's increased 14.7 million, or over almost 29% year over year. Now, a lot of that is tied to abatement roll-offs, etc., but nonetheless, the growth is there. So the table you have in front of you, and we'll put it on public record as well, is the individual per TIF year over year. You see the cumulative historical as well. But overall, very, very positive. And if you look at the combined percent increases, 9.85% growth between pay 2020 and pay 2019 was the second highest growth on record since 2000. Pay 2017 was a strong year, and pay 2014 was a strong year. Otherwise, it's the top three fastest growing year that we've been measuring since pay 2011. The last thing I'll leave you with is many years ago, the mayor's office and work with the redevelopment commission leadership put together a strategic plan, if you will, or a vision for the redevelopment areas, where really it was a challenge to say, okay, how can we make these good TIF, right? How can we make it to where if we're deferring the public benefit of taxing those properties today, how can we make sure they grow at a rate that'll be significant upon sunset? And at the time, the city's gross assessed value, all the properties, was approximately $3.5 billion. When you adjust for all the mortgage deductions and all those things, the net assessed value at that point in time was approximately $2 billion. So in that discussion, the city said, hey, what if we shoot for $1 billion? Literally, like, what if we shoot to increase the taxable value by 50% over the 30 years that these TIF districts are set, okay? And that internally became known as, as Project 1 Billion, but essentially it was to try to say, upon sunset, what growth rate would the city the redevelopment commission each year have to average in order to be able to increase the cumulative taxable assessed value at sunset by $1 billion. And that works out to be about 7 to 8% per year that it has to average through sunset. So when you look at 13.89, 9.13, 7.29, 5.91, and then 9.85 as far as annual percentages, you can see that's why it's something that we like to see, because it's directionally pointing to that broader strategic vision that the mayor's office set years ago. So overall, I hope that was an overview. The takeaways are the growth has been really good, and we just wanted to come and share that progress with you this evening. Myself, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Adam. Any questions?
Adam, I know it's an open-ended question. What's the correlation between this and the economy? I mean, can you give any kind of economy's good, this is going to be good, economy bad, this is going to
Yeah, really good question. I wish that I was able to probably provide a better answer. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say that it's a positive one on correlation, okay? I don't think it's exactly tied because, there's property assessment, there's various different things, but I think you can say that there is a strong correlation. I think that you can point to as probably a lagging indicator for some of the growth. A better leading indicator of the economy is the number of abatement requests that, in my personal opinion, that you all would entertain prospectively. I think positive assessed valuation is probably a better lagging indicator for you all as far as the work you've already done, the abatements you've already passed, the projects that have already been in flight, because those take a while to work into their assessments. No different than your personal property. These are properties that are assessed. January 1 of this year is really the pay value for next year. So I think it's a good lagging indicator, certainly correlated, but I would advise you against thinking that it's completely one-to-one, because there may be a down year, and because it takes 18 months or so, you still may see positive assessed valuation. I would say the volume of new project abatement requests, specifically real personal property, would be a better lead indicator.
Well, and if you're looking at that, I would say, if you consider the last recession we had in '08, property values really didn't catch up until probably 2011, 2012 pay years. So, like Adam said, it is a lagging, but even then, the property maintains some intrinsic value that it's not going to get assessed down as much just because it has value in and of itself.
All right. Any other questions?
The central expansion allocation, it took a big jump in 17. Was that because of Enrish Hauser?
It was.
And the Fry Road's basically been a very steady, but the east side allocation's been significantly higher than the Fry Road.
Yeah, so you're correct with Anderson Hauser being a large contributor to the growth in St. Louis. Fry Road, the largest taxpayer by a significant portion of the Greenwood Park Mall, and their main anchor stores have been a headwind for that district. And then lastly, East Side has been the major benefactor to a lot of the large commercial appeals or commercial abatements rather, that have been approved recently.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you
Really
very much.
appreciate it. Committee and board reports. You all should have received a copy of my report from the last RDC meeting. If you have any questions, you let me know. Any other committee or board reports? All right, seeing none, we have a request for a walk-on resolution 1922. I'd entertain a motion to walk that on and place it under introduction. We have a motion by Mr. Bates. Have a second? Ms. Gibson? Any discussion? Okay.
What is it?
It was sent out.
It's the resolution to authorize the bond issuance to refund the 2010 Western disaster response into another bond issuance for infrastructure out of the TIF, East Side TIF.
Any other discussion on walking this on? All right, seeing a roll call on walking on resolution 1922.
Armstrong,
Nay.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Bill, Hopper,
Aye.
and Lexi.
Aye.
Resolution 1922 is walked on with a vote of 8-1, and we will place that at the end of the introductions. Right, this is time for members of the audience. If you are here, would like to address the council. It's not stated in the agenda tonight, but we have two of these in our council meetings. The one at the beginning of the council meeting is for you to address agenda items that are on our agenda for tonight. And if you would like to do that, the one at the end is for non-agenda items. And if you're here and would like to do that, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and there's a 5-minute time limit. Ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you. Diane Davis. I live at 235 Gulf Court, Greenwood, 46143. I'm here as the Fairways Homeowner Association President, again to talk about Ordinance 1921. Just as a citizen of the city, and I have a few other members of the Trace that are on the board, and another homeowner in the Fairways, to give you firsthand knowledge what we've been experiencing. I came to another meeting and we talked about the issues of crime. Ordinance 1921 is all about the service call ratio to the hotels in the area. And it is just really threatening and scary to have people walk up to one of my neighbor's garages while she's unloading groceries, took her toddler inside, and this woman started taking things out of her garage. We've had patio furniture taken off of our porches. We've had people sleeping on the back side by that fence overnight. We've had people relieving themselves. We've had knapsacks. I can go on, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but it is an issue where we as homeowners, taxpayers, voters want more protection. And honestly, I think the ordinance would be a great beginning. Between us, I think we've got over 200 people, and I know that's a lot of votes, and I know that's a lot of money coming into the city, but what can we do? And we need you to facilitate on our behalf a better way to protect our citizens. Just from a standpoint of homes for sale, we've had, just in that one little court, we've already had 3 people move out and 3 more have had their condos up for sale. So out of 17, that's over 35%. And just from a marketing standpoint, anybody can look up crime. And the service to ratio calls, if I was a new home prospective buyer, I really would want to look up and see where the crime was. And it's a lot, over 500 calls every week in just that one area. So pleading the case to validate Ordinance 1921 to get it started. So whatever we need to do.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time?
My name's Linda. I work for Red Carpet Inn. I represent them, and the thing is we are taking steps.
State your full name and address, please.
Linda Goodman, 1117 East Main Street. One of the steps that we're taking, we tried to contact In-Town Suites and Red Carpet so we can set up an email chain. So basically, if they are to kick someone out, they email us their information so that we do not take them in. Because one thing we did see in the past week is they raised their prices, they kicked someone out, they ended up over there and there was an issue. So we're trying to make contact with them so that we have better communication so that we can rid out any problems they have, or if we have the same thing, we can email them and say, hey, this is what happened, here's the incident. You know, you may not want to rent to them, so that we can try to make it better communication, safer for our community, and make everybody, you know, safe and happy in Greenwood. So I still have a question on the whole email with the in-house list, if you guys ever came up with a solution for that. I don't know if you remember the last time I was here, where we could automatically email the in-house list to the police department so they can do their warrant checks automatically instead of having to come to the property, and seeing if that would help too. Better communication is key. You know, I think if all 3 of us hotels could work together, it would help. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? Seeing none, moving on, ordinances and resolutions. First reading, ordinance 1927.
Mike, sorry, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
The walk-on, we're probably paying bond counsel to sit out there in the audience, so if we could actually move that to the front, get it out of the way, and we can stop paying them, and they can go home. I'm guessing, are we paying somebody out there from a law firm to sit around?
We have,
Which one's
as stone professional, we have our,
We have a motion from Mr. Hopper to move resolution 1922 to the front of the agenda. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bates. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, resolution 1922.
A resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds for the purpose of providing funds to be applied for costs of public infrastructure projects and incidental expenses in connection therewith, currently refunding the City of Greenwood Qualified Midwestern Disaster Area Bond Series 2010 and paying the costs and expenses arising from the issuance of the bonds.
All right,
Okay, so, as mentioned, one of the goals with this bond issuance is to refund the 2010 Midwestern Disaster Area Bonds, also known as the Alona bonds. Those were issued about 5.375% rate. We expect we should be able to get between 3.75 and 4, so we'll see a significant savings on the remaining principal of the 2.75 million. Additionally, we're looking at two projects to be funded from this TIF bond issuance. One would be the field house, the renovation of the gym there from the old middle school, and the other is Worsville Road, Section 3. It's on from 31 heading west. We've done a lot of the right-of-way and land acquisition there, and so we'll be going to bid in November of this year, so we'll be looking at having to pay our portion of the MPO match. So that's where we were hoping to pay for that. As I mentioned, the East Side TIF is coming up on its sunset. It has approximately 9 years left now on it, and so this would be the last bond issue that would come out of that TIF. It would basically be enough to put us at exactly what we have to have coverage-wise with our other bond issues, but we consider it to be maxing out what we could do bond-wise from that TIF.
right, and the length of this bond would end when
It would end when the TIF ends, so just over 9 years.
Okay.
What is the current expiration date of the qualified Midwestern disaster area bonds?
They've still got, I believe, 2 years left. 2.75 million, I think it's just over 2 years left in payments.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hopper. All right, first reading, ordinance 1927.
An ordinance for appropriation and tax rates for the 2020 budget year.
Mr. Wright, you want to talk to us about this, or,
Would you like to get a motion on
I'm
that?
sorry, do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Foster. Okay. Second by Mr. Dine. Any questions for Mr. Wright? We'll just leave it at that, how's that?
Yeah, I think the second night of budget presentation information will be at the end.
Okay. All right, any discussion on the council on ordinance 1927? Seeing none, then roll call, first reading, ordinance 1927.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill, Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
and Armstrong.
Nay.
Resolution 1927 passes first reading 8-1. Ordinance 1927 passes first reading 8-1. Second reading, ordinance 1921.
An ordinance amending Greenwood Municipal Code 1993 as amended, Chapter 6, Safety Departments and Regulations to add Article 14 regarding hotels and places of public lodging.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second.
That's Lex.
Oh, sorry. Motion by Mr. Lexi, second.
Sure.
I assume Mr. Foster would jump right in there.
Actually, I was going to move it
Okay,
in
second by Mr. Hopper. And any discussion?
Mr. President, I was going to move to amend it after several drafts and speaking with the city attorney. I moved to amend it with the previous email I sent all the councilors earlier in the day, and by attachment to the minutes.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Foster to amend it, second by Mr. Bates. Do we have any discussion on the amendment to ordinance 1921?
The amendment's just clean up, right?
Yes.
All right, roll call on the amendment to ordinance 1921.
Mr. President, I'm sorry,
Yes.
before you go there, can I ask a question? Under calls for service, we're including calls made to the Board of Public Works and Safety, such as mowing, parking, or other code enforcement things.
The current version, it also includes calls made to code enforcement or the Department of Community Development Services regarding mowing and parking.
Okay, so you do have code
Yes,
enforcement.
I changed that. Maybe you didn't get, I did send a later email with the current
I
version.
didn't get that, thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right, any further discussion on the amendment to ordinance 1921? Send in roll call on the amendment to ordinance 1921.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
And Bates.
Aye.
Ordinance 1921 is amended on a vote of 9-0. Any additional discussion on ordinance 1921 as amended?
I have some concerns yet, and I've expressed that to Mr. Foster. Drew, can you tell us what the current ratio is for each of those locations so that we know that if we do a 2-0, that we are expecting things to
It is.
improve?
So what the actual breakdown right now is the calls, I did not do the math on those numbers, but I believe, again, applying a uniform 2-0 ratio to everyone equally is the most fair way and legal way to do it.
But how do we know what that ratio should be if we don't know what the current ratio is? Or take an average of the current ratio?
Sure. I believe doing anything less would probably result in a challenge in court that the city would lose. Again, just writing the ordinance has already made the hotels begin to communicate with each other, which I think is, good, and any type of change for the positive is a good thing, but again, that's what other similar cities have used, that type of ratio.
All right, any further discussion, ordinance 1921 as amended? Seeing none, then roll call, ordinance 1921 as amended. Second reading.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Nay.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
And Campbell.
Aye. Ordinance 1921 passes second reading 8-1. Ordinance 1923.
An ordinance transferring funds within the general fund for the city court from budget category 111, $11,675 to budget category 331 for public defender, sponsored by Hopper.
Do I have a motion?
Also moved.
Motion by Mr. Bates, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster. Any discussion, ordinance 1923? Seeing none, roll call, ordinance 1923, second reading.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
And Dine.
Ordinance 1923 passes second reading 9-0. Resolution 1918.
A resolution declaring certain personal property for tax abatement, FedEx Supply Chain Inc., sponsored by Campbell and Hopper.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Foster. Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine. Good, got that in there. Any discussion? Resolution 1918. Seeing none, roll call, resolution 1918, second reading.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Nay.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
And Foster.
Aye.
Resolution 1918 passes second reading 8-1. Resolution 1919.
A resolution declaring certain real property improvements for tax abatement to GLA Properties 2 LLC, Southeast corner of Collins Road, and Stacy Way, sponsored by Hopper and Campbell.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hopper. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster.
Trying to get situated up here.
Any discussions? Resolution 1919.
Is this under new business or are we under first or second reading of it?
It's under second reading.
And I think it's new business though.
New business. On the agenda, so it's on page 3 and 3.
It is. I'm sorry. I got on the wrong, excuse me, I got on the wrong page. So it is under new business.
Well, we might as well do it. We got a first and a second.
Just stop.
We're in new business, aren't we? Did we?
No, we're just now, no, I didn't,
We're ready for new business.
it's my fault. Instead of flipping the page, I went to page 3. I skipped page 2 altogether. So we'll go back to page 2.
But those are all new business.
All new
That's
business.
why I'm saying we could go ahead and do, since we're there.
Well, we're not.
Well, it's in new business. It's down, just down.
Right, I know. That's why I said I switched. All right, we are going to go to ordinance 1928, new business introductions and new ordinances and resolutions.
An ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the city of Greenwood, Indiana, and city utilities for the year 2020, sponsored by Campbell and Gibson.
This is the salary ordinance that is reflected in the salary shown in the budget documentation. It is a 2% cost of living adjustment that was built in. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Any questions? All right, moving on, ordinance 1929.
An ordinance transferring funds within the fire fund, fire department, from budget categories 333, 334, and 443 to budget category 222, $11,569, sponsored by Campbell.
Is there a request for suspension of the rules through first reading? I entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster. Any discussion on suspension of the rules, ordinance 1929? Seeing none, roll call on suspension.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
And Gibson.
Aye.
Ordinance 1929, rules are suspended through first reading. Do you have a motion for first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lexi, second by Ms. Gibson, or Mr. Dine. Any questions for Chief Hoggett?
Tell everybody the good news about the contest tonight. I think that's amazing. I'll take a win anywhere we can
I'll
get
just
it.
let everybody know in the audience and the council that the Greenwood Fire Department rib eating team beat White River Township Fire Department rib eating team.
Very good, very good. All right, any further discussion, ordinance 1929, any questions for Chief Hoggett? Seeing none, roll call, ordinance 1929, first reading.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
And Hill.
Ordinance 1929 passes first reading 9-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance 1930.
An ordinance providing for an additional appropriation from the motor vehicle highway MVH fund to budget category 223, sponsored by Gibson.
Any questions for the controller? What's the purpose?
So this year's weather this summer, with it being so dry, has allowed the street department to do a lot more of the sidewalk repairs and street repairs that we would normally do. So we have the opportunity to spend a little extra and get some more done because we've almost used up what we had planned for this year. So we're asking to add some to that repair and maintenance supply line so that we can do some more sidewalks this summer.
All right. Any questions?
I'd like to request that we suspend the rules, bring this in for first reading.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Bates to suspend the rules through first reading. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion on suspension of the rules?
I'm actually doing this because of the weather, it's
Yeah,
all
we appreciate it.
predicated on what kind of weather we're still having.
Yeah, we've got enough to get through the end of this process, but it would be helpful to have that already approved so that we can keep going.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call on suspension of the rules, ordinance 1930.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill. And Hopper.
Ordinance 1913, rules are suspended through first reading. Do I have a motion for first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bates, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion? Ordinance 1930? Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1930, first reading.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
And Lexi.
Ordinance 1930 passes first reading 9-0. Ordinance 1931.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the mayor of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2020, sponsored by Campbell.
So this one and the next three after it will all be 2% cost of living.
2% for all the elected officials.
Yes.
Ordinance 1932.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the common council of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2020, sponsored by Campbell.
And ordinance 1933.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the city judge of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2020, sponsored by Gibson.
And ordinance 1934.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the clerk of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2020, sponsored by Bates, Dine, Foster, Hill, Gibson, and Lexi.
Any discussion on any of these ordinances? Questions? All right, seeing none. Wow. Ordinance, or resolution 1919.
Okay. A resolution declaring certain real property improvements for tax abatement, GLA Properties 2 LLC, Southeast corner of Collins Road and Stacy's Way, sponsored by Hopper and Campbell.
And I do apologize, fellow councilors, for getting on the wrong page there. So, anybody here to talk to us about this? All right, please step to the podium.
Good evening, my name is Jane Orland. I'm with Cushman & Wakefield and I represent QCD. We have Cody Mullins here. Okay, come on up. We have a presentation for you about QCD and Golden State Foods, about the property that we're looking to lease from Snell. And we have a representative from Snell in the audience here. So give us a few minutes, we'll get set up and then we'll talk to you about QCD and Golden State Foods, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Cody Mullen. I'm with QCD, and as Jane indicated, we're here to talk to you a little bit about quality custom distribution, who we are, and what we're considering to do in your fine community here. So, QCD is a wholly owned subsidiary of Golden State Foods. Golden State Foods is a Irvine, California-based large food manufacturing and distribution company. We're approximately $5 billion in sales annually, with presence in Egypt, China, New Zealand, Australia, and of course the United States. Quality custom distribution is a systems distribution arm of Golden State Foods, and by systems I mean chain restaurant type business. So many household names that I'm sure that you would recognize are the types of businesses that we do distribution for, as well as manufacturing. So, I'm gonna move on here. Let's see. There we go. This is our leadership team. I'll move past this, but this robust group of leaders has been working on this project in establishing business in Mid-America, or what we call Mid-America. So as you can see, our presence around the country is very strong in the Pacific Northwest, the Southwest. We've got a solid presence in Texas, the Southeast, and then the East Coast along the I-95 corridor. But we're very interested in growing our business in Minneapolis, Illinois, and of course, Indiana. The type of business we do is fast-paced food distribution. We turn products very quickly. We buy product from approved suppliers for the concepts we serve, bring those products into a centralized distribution center that's equipped with large refrigeration systems, drive-in freezers, drive-in coolers, cold box, dry goods storage. We bring that product in, we store it, and then select specialized or customized orders for the stores that we serve, place them on the pallets, load them onto trucks, and then deliver them out to the restaurants. A lot of the work that we do is for very fast-paced restaurants, so we do all that work, most of that work overnight. So it's like when the store managers get in there in the morning, it's like the Christmas elves came and delivered all of their products, and the food is ready to go. So we've got to use, because that product moves so fast, some pretty robust technology in order to make this product turn properly with the appropriate code date and shelf life as it gets out to the customer, as well as technology on all of our tractors and trailers to keep track of where our fleets and our assets are across the country as we make these deliveries. This is a concept of the facility that Scannell is building that we're working with them on, and an overview of the floor plan. It's a 135,000 square foot facility, cross-dock facility, inbound on one side, outbound on the other. We do that to create an environment where receiving can operate at the same time as outbound, so we can offer as many good shifts as possible. Many companies like us do receiving at night and shipping during the day. We do our best to try to keep operating in the daylight hours. However, volume does dictate that schedule, and growth can push us into overnight shifts. Here's an overview. The light blue area is where the site has been identified to build the facility. And we are evaluating real estate options in a number of places in Mid-America that I described earlier. But what's really important for us, our considerations are, real estate availability is a big deal, labor availability, and of course availability of incentives, and that's what brings us here this evening. Our total capital investment for this project is $22 million, with real property in the 11.7 million range, and equipment and racking at about 10.35. That's kind of the business part. Now the fun part, our employment projections are 99 new jobs. Job descriptions like managers, supervisors, forklift drivers, package handlers, truck drivers, other warehousing functions, inventory control. Our timeline for this is construction commence on November 1st, 2019. Certificate of occupancy targeted for August 1st of 2020, with business commencement on August 1st of 2020 as well. We offer benefits, of course, to our associates, including medical, dental, vision. Tuition reimbursement is very big for our organization. Scholarships for employees. We do up to $5,000 annually in tuition reimbursement. University partnerships, and then we also have an internal university for leadership development. And leadership development and people development in general is very important to us as an organization. As we look at those stars on that map across the country, many of those distribution center leaders, or general managers as we call them, are the folks that had started with us as truck drivers or as warehouse personnel and worked their way up through this organization to become future leaders. And there are so many stories of those throughout our organization. And as we come into your community, there are things that we do other than just shopping for real estate. We like to spend time in the community and go out and meet people and see how the city flows. And one of the things that I've noticed is the infrastructure here, just how agriculture and industry gets along on the roadways is very impressive. But the people, I think, what stands out for me most of all, and for a couple of you, you've already heard this story, but the other day I popped into the local Waffle House to have a late breakfast. And as I looked around, this guy named Jacob with a K met me at the counter, and he waited there with me until I made a decision on what I was going to order for breakfast. Even made 2 suggestions off of the menu. And then later I noticed that the guy working behind the counter, his name was Peaches. I promise you his name was Peaches. It said it on his name tag. I noticed that he was doing a really good job keeping control of his grill and taking care of his customers. And the story I shared with the committee the other day was that I noticed every time an order was called out to him, not only did he check it once, he checked it twice, called it back twice to make sure that his customer were going to get the right product. And that really stands out for us as we watch people work in the community where we are considering these expansions. We look for skill sets like that. We want to see a group of people working in the community that take their job seriously, and that's very attractive to us here. And then finally, community outreach programs are very important to us. We have a foundation that is 100% associate-led. Our foundation currently has 25 local committees, including China, Egypt, Australia, and New Zealand. More than 80% of our associates contribute to the foundation, and over the course of 17 years, the foundation has raised over $55 million, which has been turned back into 600 children's charities across the country, and elementary schools. So developing that foundation presence in Indiana is very important to us as well. Very important to us as we give back to the community. At this point, I'll open it up for any questions.
Mr. Dunn?
What is your exit road? What road will you be exiting onto with your trucks?
Exiting onto, off of exit 99 and then traveling.
I was gonna say, as you come out of your building.
As we come out of our building, we will go Collins, which I hear has an impeccable track record, 6 years without an accident at that interchange. Congratulations. Safety is key. So yes, we'll come up on Collins Road.
You'll be going up north to Allen and over, or will you be going south to Worthville Road?
Can you help me with this one, Sean?
Yeah. Sean Cofer, Spinell Properties. They'll probably do a little bit of both, and they probably won't go up to Allen. They'll come across our new Stacy's Way that is being constructed right now, because we turned that into a 3-lane industrial collector road to go across there. And so they'll be able to take some traffic across Stacy's Way back to the west and then hit Graham Road, where we widen that out to 4 lanes for the new Amazon facility. Or they'll be able to go straight down Collins to Worksville Road, where the city has done some work down there to get back onto the interstate.
So Stacy's Way is the red line there that's...
Yeah, Stacy's Way would be the red line just underneath the big yellow box. So the big yellow box is the new Amazon facility that just opened up. The green box is the California Custom Fruits and Flavors building that's being constructed right now. And then they will be going right in front of the Pitney Bowes Logistics building that's been operational for about 1.5 years now.
Any other questions?
I can't, since I can't see the SB1 form on here, what is the expected number of employment opportunities?
99.
99.
Yeah, 99 associates this year. And I came in here hot off of an airplane and taking 99 cars off of the 65 South would probably be a good thing.
Thank you.
And you've got the salaries are $53,039. That's average.
Yeah, I would say an average, a good solid average is anywhere between 20 and 25. Of course, they vary between the manager goals, the truck driver goals, the warehouse associate goals, but 20 to 25 is a good average to use.
All right, any other
What
questions?
will be the minimum salary?
It's really hard for me to say. Our HR department is working on a program. What we typically see is around $18, $17 to $18 an hour for our warehouse associates, which would be the entry level. I would ask that if there is press in the room, that if we could talk afterward, I'll put you in touch with our communications department so we can get the right information out there. The wages we do pay is a competitive advantage for us in the marketplace.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but as I do for every company that comes before the council, when you're ready to leave high tax California, Greenwood is open for business, and we'll take you right here.
Let have your national headquarters.
Yep.
And I believe that, even though we're on resolution 1919, resolution 1920 is, these two go together, and everything he just said about 1919 would apply to 1920. The ones, 1919 is for the building, 1920 is for personal property. So. All right, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And for the record, resolution 1920.
A resolution declaring certain personal property for tax abatement, Quality Custom Distribution Services, Inc., sponsored by Hopper and Campbell.
All right. Miscellaneous business. At this time, if you're here in the audience, would like to address the council concerning items that are not on the agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and there is a 5-minute time limit.
Hi there, my name is Kevin Grease, 1195 Newark Court in Greenwood. I just have one quick question, and I brought it up to a councilman earlier. With all this distribution stuff going in, heading westbound on Main Street under I-65, I really like it. That would be 2 lanes heading westbound. So if your engineer or someone can speak to that or help me figure that out, I appreciate it.
All right, we'll look into that. All right, anyone else from the audience? Seeing none, council, anything from the council?
Mr. President, I have a question. Do we have the stoplight working out there at Amazon, or where are we at on that? What's the status?
The stoplight, near Amazon, was that it? Mr. Johnston, welcome. I'll teach you to come to council meetings.
No problem. Always happy to answer questions. Daniel Johnston, city engineer. Ms. Gibson, the signal is actually under construction right now. Biggest issue will be the lag time. It's just kind of an industry-wide and the traffic signal pole manufacturing process. Typically in the last couple of years, it's been on the order of 3 to 4 months wait time for when the signal poles will be installed. And so the contract for this project is to have those particular signal poles installed no later than mid-January. We're having to get all the underground work done in the next few weeks, and then unfortunately, just due to that industry issue, we're kind of going to be on standby until we receive those.
And then where are we on the stoplight at Main and Airport Parkway?
That is actually still in the design phase, trying to assess how we can best treat the southwest corner in terms of the drainage feature there, as well as continuing the pedestrian path.
What's our anticipated time for having that installed?
That I'll have to get back with you.
Would you please, because a lot of residents, especially in Country Air, and some of the others along that area, they're really anxious to get that light. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else from the council? Seeing none, Corporation Council?
None?
Mr. Wright, it's yours.
I'm sure you're all tired of me already, so try to make
So this evening, we'll talk about the capital budget a little bit and then go through the summaries of the departments that were not mentioned in the first presentation. Do have several department heads here to answer any specific questions you may have. Then we'll just kind of go over a brief overview of changes and overview of the materials that I sent to you. So this, a look at our operating budget, how it's spread out between the city funds and the utility funds. So you can see that of the overall budgets, the utilities make up about 37%, public safety 27%, general administration 18%, etc. On the capital side, again, the utilities are the biggest part there. But street work is the next biggest, and this is just the capital projects coming from the budgets of the city fund. We also have our TIP funded projects, including Worsville Road, Phase 3, Field House. We have the park at the Worsville Road interchange that we're looking at some improvements there. Some work at Old City Park is on the plans. Emerson Avenue Phase 2, and then downtown streetscape, and obviously the middle school property. Additionally, with the sewer utility, we do have the Western Regional Interceptor project, and this one is, we're expecting to begin Phase 2 in mid-2020. Grants, we are going to, we have a match in our budget for community crossings grants, so we're hoping to get $500,000 from the state for road projects, and then also the MPO projects, as far as some of those road projects and getting matching funds there as well. This is just the agenda of the different departments that are on for tonight. Start with the mayor's office. The changes here, cost of living adjustment for staff, and then we did build in an increase in the contributions to the social, to Johnson County Senior Services, and to Greenwood Community Band. So these are three that are split between the council and the mayor's budgets. So you'll see that again on the council budget. We're looking to do $40,000 total to the social, $15,000 total to Johnson County Senior Services, and then $5,000 total to the Greenwood Community Band. And those are split evenly between the two departments. This is the year-over-year breakdown. You see just a slight increase there. For the council's budget, the 2% cost of living that we discussed, and then the increased contributions to social, Johnson County Senior Services, and the Greenwood Community Band. Again, minor increase. Fire department budget. This budget adds funding for 6 new full-time firefighters. We are reducing part-time hours in order to fund these, so as we bring on those full-time positions, we'll need less part-time filling those hours. We do have some increases to supplies for fuel, EMS supplies, training supplies, turnout gear, and other miscellaneous. That's a lot of the stuff that we asked for the transfer in the earlier part of the meeting. So we've got those increases built in for next year. And then a slight increase to outside instruction due to price increase, and that's some of their continued ed type stuff. We do have one project for capital, Station 94 for the HVAC. We'll kind of slow down here to see if anybody has any questions before we get through that. Yes, sir.
The part-time employees at the fire department, the firefighters and EMTs and stuff, what will their hourly rate be? Because it was in the $12 range, I believe, or 14, somewhere in there.
Chief, do you know what the rate is?
$14.50,
$14.50
I believe, yep.
for the 2020?
Okay, yes. Any other questions? All right, on to the Parks Department. We do have a new full-time grounds maintenance position built in. Expansion of the parks maintenance seasonal crews. This is particularly the mowing crews. as we've expanded the parks and all of the areas that the city has to upkeep with mowing and weed eating and that, we're needing more people. Then obviously the supplies to get those people to work as well. We added $20,000 for annual trail and parking lot seal coating. Last year's budget funded the Polk Hill Trail repaving, and so what we're trying to do with the other trails is put in an annual amount that we can just do as much as we can with that $20,000 every year, so that we can keep up with maintaining those and keep them in good shape. We do have the Parks Department reimbursing the general fund for half of the health insurance costs associated with Parks employees. And then some of the items on their capital plan include $300,000 for the Fred Road Hampton House improvements, and then some machinery and equipment, that's mowers, tractor, dump trailer, several items like that for those parks maintenance use. Any questions on parks?
What is the Hampton House?
Rob, can you speak to the Hampton House?
It's a proposed rental facility off the Fry Road.
I believe it's the house they purchased, how long ago did you purchase that? A year or two ago?
About a year.
About a year.
Is that the one on the north side that,
Right by the entrance to the park, there on Fry Road, between 31 and 135.
It's got a joint property.
Yeah, about 2 properties down from the fire station.
Sort of around the beige
Yeah.
brick house with shutters, is that the one you're thinking of?
I was wondering about the one that's the east of the fire station. This is west of the fire
This is
station.
west of the fire station, yeah.
The one that's been on the endangered.
That is owned by a private individual, and he's doing all that work.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on to the next slide here. Fleet maintenance, you have a cost of living adjustment built in again. We did increase the overtime budget for fleet maintenance based on the amount of work coming in and what they're doing, as well as once the DPW building opens, we know there will be some time spent moving everything over there, so we wanted to account for that as well. Do have some slight increases on fuel, oil, and vehicle repair parts. A lot of that is just due to price increases. Increase to service and charges based on projected costs for training, and then for the laundry service that does all the oily shop rags and all that stuff, all the cleaning. We built in some contingency money for the move to the DPW and the CCI cigarette tax fund as well, so you'll see that when we get down there. Any questions on fleet maintenance? And you notice this is a slight decrease. That is due to adjusting the split of the salaries over the utilities and city funds. So the street fund contributes, the utilities contribute, as well as the general fund. The street department, adding 2 new truck driver laborer positions, converting 1 supervisor position to assistant superintendent. This is kind of a continuity planning thing, getting somebody ready to be able to step up. Adjust the part-time labor amount based on the trend. We do have the general fund being reimbursed for the health insurance costs for the street employees. We did build in, again, contingencies for the moving expenses. We are adding some capital leases for another dump truck, a paver, a paint machine, a backhoe, a mowing tractor, a hot box, and 2 pickup trucks. Additionally, we have the annual bid overlay paving. $875,000 will come from the MVH fund, and then the rest of it will come from the LRS fund. And then we have on our capital here a community crossing grant match for $500,000. In the past, we were able to use the special distributions of local income tax. we're not guaranteed that we will get that next year, so we're building it into this budget just in case. If we do get it, we won't need to use it here. So on the LRS fund, we did increase the budget slightly for road saw, liquid calcium, and vehicle repair parts, as well as the $355,000 for the paving, and then miscellaneous capital outlays. This one, pretty much what we try to do is match exactly our spending up with our revenues, so that whatever we're getting in salt, we can kind of stock when we have the opportunity, and we have it on hand when we do have the bad years. Community development services. We do have a few increases in personal services, specifically cost of living, and then increasing the per meeting pays for the Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Overlay Committee. We're increasing services for the addition of having Commonwealth engineers attend our tech review meetings, and then also to update the asset management plan. This is required every 2 years as part of the Community Crossings grant, so if we want to get that money, we do have to keep that up to date. Any questions on CDS? On to our cumulative capital funds. So there are a few items coming off of the CUNCAP, the CCD. We have the zoning ordinance that was on, it was a 2-year project, it's finished up. Election costs, that'll be just this year thing. We did add in some ADA compliance costs. We're going to try and get some projects done around the city and the airport to try and comply with the ADA, as well as increasing the budget for the CAFR, that's the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and then GASB compliance fees. That is with a financial advisor that we use to assist with those. We've got the lease rental payments for the fire station. We've got overall services and charges actually went down a bit. This one also has the $600,000 built in for a potential hangar at the airport to be located north of the current T hangars. That one's still being negotiated. If it doesn't happen, it'll come off of there. We do have the flex budget for machinery and equipment remaining the same. And the reason I flagged the other services and charges on this particular page is that is a change from what I sent out to you on Friday. I did send an update this afternoon. There was one item that was missing related to annual software maintenance for the fire department's incident tracking system. And so I wanted to make sure that I pointed out that that was added in since Friday. In the CUNCAP cigarette tax money, we did add in moving expenses, as I mentioned, for fleet, as well as keeping the flex budget the same. So that one, we have $45,000 built in for machinery and equipment if necessary. And that $120,000 is pretty much exactly what we're bringing in, so we just match those. For the CCI rate fund, we did increase the Microsoft license costs. We have more people using computers for the city, which means more licenses, so that cost has gone up. We were able to decrease the software maintenance costs, however, because we are changing the accounting department's software to a different company, and that cost for the annual maintenance is going down. We have some new leases for desktops and laptops. That's kind of a revolving program every year. We're adding some new police vehicles under a capital lease, as well as funding for Main Meadowview roundabout right-of-ways, and then our portion of the construction match. Questions on those?
I drive through Main and Meadowview often. Do you know how soon they're gonna start that project?
Daniel, you know when we're going with that one?
Is that gonna start in 2020 or 2021?
2020.
So you gotta do the right of way acquisitions and all that.
Yeah.
And then we have to put our money up first.
All right.
In the clerk's office, the only increase there is the cost of living increase built into the personal services. Under the clerk's record perpetuation fund, cost of living increase for personal services, and then we did add a line item for some office supplies at $500. Under the city court, we have the cost of living adjustment, an increase for the additional public defender, which the transfer was approved for earlier for the last half of this year. Also increases for postage and mileage, continuing ed, and then the official's bond for the judge based on what this year's cost was, it's gone up, so we had to increase that line. And then under the adult probation department, we'll be adding one new field officer position. And then the felony case manager, which used to be under the county, and the grant that goes along with that person is now 100% under the city. So that you'll see that increase on the personal services side. And then services and supplies increases for workbooks as well as a recovery coach program. You see that reflected here. Any questions on the court or probation departments? Okay, so in the stuff I sent out to you all on Friday, the citizens budget, which if I don't have any other responses on, I'll go ahead and get published to the website. The department summaries are out to you as well as the line item detail. The schedule of authorized positions and salary ordinances in those work papers I sent. The multi-year capital budget, working with Mr. Stone on that to get everything captured, and I will get that out to you as soon as it's complete. So as our next steps, we'll post the Form 3 to Gateway. The second reading is currently scheduled for October 21st. That's the public hearing as well. If there's not much of the way of changes to the budget, we can move that up if you prefer. At that public hearing also would be the adoption, and then the adoption of the salary ordinances. Once that happens, we have 2 days to submit it to the DLGF. And then they have until December 31st to get the preliminary budget order, which is called the 1782 notice, out to us. And we get 10 calendar days then to respond to that if we want to change anything from what they send us, or if we disagree with any of their numbers. Answer any questions?
Greg, what is our projected tax rate for 2020?
It's going to be slight increase. I want to say it's still just over 66 cents per hundred.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Rice, appreciate it. Anything from the mayor's office? No. We are adjourned. Thank you.